A general in Gray Forrest's military acumen, Nathan Bedford. Forrest was a prominent figure in the Confederate States Army during the American Civil War. Born in Tennessee in 1821, Forrest rose from humble beginnings to become a successful businessman before the war. When the South seceded, Forrest enlisted in the Confederate Army, quickly rising through the ranks due to his natural military acumen. He was a gifted tactician, known for his unconventional strategies and bold cavalry raids. Forrest's military prowess earned him both admiration and fear. His supporters hailed him as a military genius, pointing to his victories at battles like Shiloh and Bryce's Crossroads. His detractors criticized his aggressive tactics and disregard for casualties, particularly after the Fort Pillow massacre. Understanding Forrest's life, both his military achievements and his controversial actions, is crucial to grappling with the ongoing debate regarding Confederate symbols and the interpretation of history in modern America. Post-war years, from soldier to Klan leader. Following the Confederacy's defeat, the South entered a tumultuous period of Reconstruction. Amidst the social and political upheaval, Forrest became a prominent figure in the burgeoning Ku Klux Klan. Founded in 1865, the Klan was a white supremacist organization that terrorized black communities in the South. As the organization's first Grand Wizard, he oversaw its rapid expansion and the implementation of its violent tactics. Under his command, the Klan carried out countless acts of intimidation and violence. However, Forrest's involvement with the Klan was short-lived. By 1869, he grew disillusioned with the organization's increasing violence and formally disbanded the Klan. Despite his attempts to distance himself from the Klan, Forrest's association with the organization irrevocably tarnished his image. Monuments to a marred past, the rise of Forrest statues. In the decades following the Civil War, the South grappled with its defeat and the end of slavery. During this period, a romanticized view of the Confederacy emerged, known as the Lost Cause mythology. Nathan Bedford Forrest, with his military accomplishments and controversial past, became a central figure in this Lost Cause mythology. Numerous monuments and memorials dedicated to Confederate figures were erected throughout the South. Statues of Forrest, often depicted in full Confederate military regalia, were erected in cities like Memphis and Nashville. These monuments were not merely commemorative, they served as powerful symbols of white supremacy. For many African Americans, these statues stood as stark symbols of the injustices they and their ancestors had endured. The legacy of Nathan Bedford Forrest became intertwined with the Lost Cause mythology and the perpetuation of racial inequality. Section 4. Shifting Tides, Challenging the Legacy of Forrest. As the 20th century progressed, the civil rights movement gained momentum, challenging the deeply ingrained systems of segregation and racial discrimination. The movement brought renewed scrutiny to the legacy of the Confederacy and its symbols, including the numerous monuments dedicated to figures like Nathan Bedford Forrest. What had once stood as unchallenged tributes to a romanticized past were now increasingly seen as symbols of oppression and white supremacy. The debate surrounding Confederate monuments intensified, with civil rights activists calling for the removal of these statues from public spaces. They argued that these monuments glorified a dark chapter in American history and served as painful reminders of the country's legacy of slavery and racism. Supporters of maintaining the monuments argued that they represented history and heritage. However, this argument ignored the broader context of the Confederacy's fight to preserve slavery. The debate over Confederate monuments reflected a broader societal reckoning with the country's history of racial injustice. The movement to remove statues of Nathan Bedford Forrest gained traction in the early 21st century. Activists, historians, and community leaders argued that these monuments had no place in public spaces, given Forrest's association with the Confederacy and the Ku Klux Klan. Despite the opposition, several cities and states began to take action. In Memphis, Tennessee, a statue of Forrest was removed from a public park in 2017, following years of protests and legal battles. Similar actions took place in other parts of the country, reflecting a growing consensus that these monuments were incompatible with contemporary values of equality and justice. For many, the removal of these statues was a step toward healing and reconciliation. The debate over Confederate monuments, including those of Nathan Bedford Forrest, remains a contentious issue in American society. On one side, there are those who argue that these statues are a vital part of the nation's history, serving as reminders of the past and the lessons learned from it. On the other side, there are those who see these statues as symbols of a racist past that should not be glorified in public spaces. They argue that the presence of these monuments is a constant reminder of the oppression and injustice faced by Black Americans throughout history. This debate is not just about statues, it's about how we choose to remember and interpret our history. As the United States continues to grapple with its past, the conversation around Confederate monuments will likely continue to evolve. The legacy of Nathan Bedford Forrest and the monuments dedicated to him cast a long shadow over American history. These statues, once seen as symbols of heritage and pride, have become focal points in the nation's ongoing struggle with its past. They serve as reminders of a time when the values of equality and justice were not extended to all Americans. As we look to the future, it's important to remember that history is not just about the past, it's about the present and the future as well. By confronting the darker chapters of our past, we can work toward a more just and inclusive society. The story of Nathan Bedford Forrest and the debate over his monuments is a reminder that history is complex and multifaceted,